Hello, brothers and sisters. This is Lisa Lucci Arden from the desk of Lisa Lucci Arden. Thank you so much. I am an American from Italy. My roots are from Italy, but I'm from America. And we have to realize that we're all from different countries. And God gave us America to have life, to have new life, and to have freedom. And we can never forget that in truth and justice. Times are changing, as we know, and we are going to work together and have great success. I wanted to read a beautiful verse today, and actually it's in the Bible, but it's a story that is true. It's a history of God and his people. It's John 6:1-14. It says, "Some time after this, Jesus crossed the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. That is the Sea of Tiberias. And the great crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous sign he had performed on the sick. Then Jesus went up on the hillside and sat down with the disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near. When Jesus looked up, he looked up and saw, a great crowd. He saw a great crowd coming toward him. He said to Philip, 'Where shall we buy bread for those people to eat?' He asked this only to test him, but he already had something in mind. And what he was going to do, Jesus already knew. Philip answered to him, 8 months. Philip answered to him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread to feed all these people. And then another disciple said to Jesus, Andrew, Simon, Peter's brother, spoke up. Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fishes. But how far will they go among so many? Jesus said, have the people all sit down. There was a plenty of grass in the place. And the men all sat down, and about 5,000 of them, 5,000 people. Jesus then took of the loaves, gave them the distribution to those who were seated on the grass as much as they wanted. He gave them as much as they wanted. The food kept on multiplying, the distribution. A miracle. It says, when they had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, now gather all the pieces that are left over and let nothing be wasted. Let nothing be wasted of all the gifts God's given them. So they gathered them up and filled their 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over, and also from the 2 fishes by those who had eaten, because they caught actually fishes, people believed. After the people saw the miraculous signs that Jesus did, they began to say, surely that is the prophet who is come into the world. Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force. But he didn't want that. He came to save the world. Jesus came to save the world. And I know you know the story. They tell it in the churches. They tell it in the books. It's brought down from generation to generation. And it's true. There's many secondary sources that tell that it's true, that Jesus was alive and he did many miracles. Josephus Flavius, a Jewish philosopher and Jewish hierarchy intellectual, also agreed that Jesus lived. But I wanted to say the point of that story today on the book on John 6:1-14. Jesus is the Alpha and Omega, for the world. He's the beginning and the end, and he created the world, I believe, with the Trinity in heaven, okay? So he has control of all things, but he gives us free will. And so he also has sovereign power. Sovereign meaning he allows certain people to have power, and they have to choose right from wrong. So, but he gives enough to go around. That's in Daniel 4. I'm the one that talks about Daniel 4 all the time, and Nebuchadnezzar, the good Nebuchadnezzar Cyrus, humbled himself and believed that Jesus gave him God, Yahweh, that was in the Old Testament, gave him all that he has. And so he humbled himself and he became righteous, and then he helped empower. He helped empower, not just give. Empower the people, the widow, the poor, the needy. He empowered them, not just to give. He empowered them. That's how his country multiplied. Not just giving like socialism and communism and keeping everyone in a box and control. He empowered them. That's how that multiplied. So I wanted to say that our America, we could overcome these things that are happening. There's many controls, many problems here. One person has this story, that story, but they all are relative. These stories to making the logistics of the legacy of the living waters. Oh, that just came out, a beautiful coin sentence. I talk about the coin sentences. I told you about the geopolitical power, the geopolitical economy, the globalization, technology, and then the fifth one is the 9 billionaire criminals. So that's that's all relative, and we talked about that before, how it controls and changes things. It's not like 10 or 20 years ago, but we still have the power and beauty and the tenderness of God in the people, not only here in America, but other parts of the world. So what I wanted to say today, that we could bring a miracle through the power and truth of God. We can multiply. We can multiply truth, multiply restoration, multiply healing, miracle, the future of what is right. But we need to choose the right truth. The people, the 5,000 people, they didn't go to Herod, or they didn't go to an evil ruler that wanted to control the people. They went to Jesus, correct? Jesus was there to help those who needed help, to bring justice. They didn't go to the criminals that were trying to control everything. No. Okay, the people went to a person that wants to the people wants to help others. But because there's so many changes in the churches, in the delivery of God's truth, and also crimes against God's church itself, it's hard for the people to decipher who's right and who's wrong. And they're almost sometimes afraid with the churches because there's a lot of schism. And so, but we need to realize God is in power, and we can overcome all those things. God's in power, and God's love is in power, God's truth is in power, and God's purpose in power. So we need to seek justice in all we do. So today I'm going to talk about how we need to use the logistics of the living waters of truth, of God's legacy from the Old Testament he had with the Israelites to the new, and that's the old covenant, with a new covenant with Jesus Christ he sent as our Lord and Savior. And I know that President George Washington talked about this because he prayed to Jesus. So that's indirectly. He knew that only through God's mercy and grace and power where he could have, on our country, could have redemption. So that's the same thing. I'm just making it clarifying you now. I'm clarifying for people that don't know about the story about the Judeo-Christian nation as America. So we need to realize that we can make a beautiful logistics of correcting and restoring the country, just like when that's why Christ came. He came to restore the people so they may have a life and be a new creature in him, a new person in him, because he created us perfect. But the Adam and Eve story, they ate the apple, so they were aware of good and evil. So this all is relative. And I know it might not seem, but we we have to seek truth, and that's the closest truth we have. And many other countries, even not just America, believe in this truth. And truth is generally relative when it's based on the well-being of human healthy and safety, and to allow the authentic person to be. So we know all these things are happening in our country. So now we need to think of statistics of God's truth. Use God's statistics of his truth. Those are the virtues, the virtues. It's in my book, Arise to God's Truth. I talk about virtues, Arise to God's Truth. Lisa Lucia Arden, I wrote this in 2020, and I warned you about all these things about the children. They're using the children, the currency control, the China geopolitical power with Russia and the trickery of Iran. I talked about the digital dollar. I talked about the control of elite communists. I talked about the issues of the trying to take down religious freedom. These are all things that are happening. Wokeism, what it is to be human. I talked about many of these things. It was written in 2020. My other book is written in 2016. This is the first edition, Lisa Lucia Arden to Give to the World. This is the first edition. It has some mistakes, but I got this out. I wrote this, before Trump got in. I kept on writing it, but they wouldn't let me put it on Amazon. Actually, I had to print it at a local printer in Pasadena, and I handed it around. But they use a lot of these ideas, Trump's ideas. A lot of it are in line with this, because remember, even though Trump is a brilliant man and a chosen man by God, he used God's directions, divine commands to take care of America. And these are divine callings, these books and my other writings, of the way America should be taken care of and the world for humanity. I wanted to say that we need to realize that we could overcome these things through the power of justice, but we need to vote in freedom. We need to vote in freedom and realize that we can't vote in people that have control of communistic ideas. So some of it is so far bent and so deep inside, it's very diseased. It needs to be cleaned out in the soil. It's like you have to get the soil and clean the soil and have a miracle of God's living waters, of a legacy of how to correct that. And we can correct this. We see that the children, so I'll just list some things that I think are the most important that we need to consider and all pray. Even though we know these things are happening now, I've told you these things were going to happen. Many of these things, not maybe in detail, but generalizations, I told you. I kept on telling you about the children. I saw many children in abuse situations and in control, and used human trafficking and other scientific testing. I saw this in my prayer, contemplation, and common sense. 60,000 children or more in the Ukraine and Russia war they're displaced. They need to be found. A beautiful lady, I gave you her name. She is trying to work on this to find the children. And then also our children that are being abused in human trafficking in each country, each state. This has to be taken care of right away. And this is caused a lot by the open borders. The borders have to be closed. And I said this to the beautiful police in places I spoke at, airports, coffee places, in my podcast Business News, in my work for many years of common sense. The common sense is that we need to realize that how the beautiful police, we're so blessed to have the police. I believe in funding the police. Safety first. President Washington always said, you have a house, don't you, that protects you. You lock the door or even shut the door at night to protect you. It's common sense, it's logic. So George Washington always cleaned the trenches before and everything organized before he started the war for each one of his workers. It's the same thing as we need to clean the trenches of each border, community, and areas so we could be protected by the enemy, because there is an enemy. There is an enemy. There is evil in our world, as Reagan said. So in the evil in our world today that I think a lot of it is the elite communists is causing a lot of trouble, the most trouble, and not believing in God's precepts. But so let's get back to the borders. Why the borders are so important? Because we keep on spending so much time and money for the police to protect each community, correct? And they're doing a beautiful job. I know there's been problems, but we need to pray and work on that. And we need to work on that constantly and have respect. But we need to have enough police, okay? Enough police for community. Then we checked all the baggage when we go through the airport, correct? And checked everything's okay. You know, there's nothing in the baggage and so forth. That's a very laborious situation, correct? When you go travel, there's also some stores and places that you go in that you need to check your security. We secure our houses, all the security, correct? And I'm sure there's much more. The banks, you know, you know better than I do, you know, in a lot of ways, because everyone lives a little bit differently. But we have the borders open. Anybody could come through the borders. And that's how many of the Chinese built up their fake police stations or fake businesses. They bring computer systems to plan some type of military tools. Like, for example, as I told you, and I warned you before, it's written down that to look at all military tools in each form of the military of America, to look at each one. And they found computer apparatus that controlled the airplane of Chinese computer apparatus. They found it in the airplane. I asked them to do that. And I told them 1 out of every 100 military people need to be checked because they'll be against America. I'm talking very simply now. I had many things I've told you. I told you that I want all the borders corrected for years. For years. I saw all the borders corrected with the boats coming in from China, and they're in Cuba now. And I pray for Puerto Rico and all the other areas. I am a geopolitical specialist. It's in my chapter here in 2020. And I noticed that you know, Epic newspaper, you know, they're brilliant and they're a big company. But when they began, their ideas were based a lot on my 2 books, okay? And it's interesting because I saw in November 22, Epic newspaper, they talked about China and the power of China in war. That's what I was saying in the beginning of these books here. And for years I've been talking about this because I studied it in Laverne University under actually some wonderful teachers that opened my mind, even from Cambridge and Oxford. They were visitors. So, and also a beautiful Jewish lady that taught me, professor, I should not name the names, perhaps, that she was a specialist in the Holocaust. So I want to say we have to protect the borders because they could come in any way, okay? Do you understand? They could come in any way. So we're making security here, and they have come in. Okay, and also they've come in many ways, through sociologically, through apps, through computer systems, so many things. Okay, so the borders have to be protected. And I heard that they were bombing or hurting, or not bombing, but auctioning off Trump's tools. Okay, that we need to use. They're auctioning them off. That's what I heard. Our government now. That's what I heard. That's what I heard when I read it. Some news is not always so perfect. That's why I get generalizations. I don't always get details, but that's what I heard. So we need to all say we cannot auction that off. And I heard from another gentleman that the people, the General Young legacy, the people don't want capitalism. They want socialism, but they don't realize there's no more socialism that's just basic. It will be a communist elite because, and I talked about that before, the corporate censorship. And BlackRock and Vanguard are the 2 largest companies that control all the corporate earnings. Okay, the earnings and bonds. In order for big companies, remember, I'm the one that says we need to build back our big manufacturing. Remember, I'm the one that said to bring everything back to America, give competitive prices, give tax write-offs. But the way these big companies that are manufacturing, and big companies, they buy bonds. They buy bonds from BlackRock and Vanguard, that are the 2 big powerhouses. But BlackRock and Vanguard are controlling them. They're controlling to bring down the capitalism control. And the 2 men are Larry Fink and Michael Bloomberg. And Stansberry, I worked on him a long time ago, a long time. Stansberry is a special man that that talks about economy. I studied him years ago in my first book. Okay, your sister here has been studying. I didn't realize I was a change supply economist because I studied under all these men myself. Reagan, Rickards, Tika, Rogue, a lovely lady in Rogue. So many I've studied. Elcherer. So many I've studied different. I don't want to miss them all, but I'll mention the other ones later. So I've been studying these for years, and to understand the economy. And so he told us this recently. It's the Stansberry letter about the control, because everyone knows about BlackRock and Vanguard and Larry Fink and Michael Bloomberg. They're trying to control everything in our economy. And that's why in the past I called it corporate censorship. So they try to promote the wokeism, the Disney control, everything. They want to control everything. Okay, then the Silicon Bank, remember, it went under. They had a buyer, okay, in the Silicon Bank, which Stansberry talks about in his letter. The Silicon Bank had a buyer, okay, and they had a buyer, but the government wouldn't allow them to pass because the government wants to control government CBDs. It's government digital money, okay. So I told you about that before, that the government's going to make, it's actually in my first page here, the first page, I read emergency contact here about digital money that the government, this was in 2020 that I wrote this, and before 2020, that's just when it was delivered. But in my first page, the first page, it talks about the digital money. They're trying to control our economy system. So this is very important, okay? This is very important. And so also, usually when, and I know, let's go back to the children, because the children are the thesis of the main thing for our legacy, main idea today. And how does that relate to the children? See, when we treat children and people with, as an object of the way we want to, for testing and control, like they do for the abortion, and I've said this before, but I'm trying to show you the whole picture now. When we use abortion for the testing of science and control, and we make that platform easy so we could use the human body the way we want, that also trickles down to everything. And this is what happened with the Maui. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Maui. Okay, how does that relate to children? Because they chose to use our own land, our own people, the way they want, so they could build a new monetary system and buildings and everything and control Maui, because it's one of the most beautiful places in our America. So that's why they burned it down and they bombed it and made a fake natural happenings. And that's what I told you 2 weeks ago, a week and a half before it happened, that they're going to use technology to start trouble, to hurt our countries, okay? But they're going to blame it on the ecosystems. And I said they were going to do that in California. But, someone like me, because I think and I also pray, God sometimes uses, and even logic, other ideas to warn in general what they're going to do, in general, okay? So that's what happened. They used technology, I believe, and you know all the statistics and everything going on, that's what they did. It's terrible. All the children were in the house, in their school, all the people were at work. They did this, and everything was lined up, and they had a bomb. The same bomb sounded like the hurricane. The fire bomb sounded like the hurricane, okay? That they said it was a hurricane, but it was a technology, because they used technology that burns into a system in the center of it, and it doesn't necessarily burn like a big fire. So they said some of the cars and trees and things like that were burned very oddly, not like a natural fire, but a technological fire cause. Because I heard that they want to take over Maui, the wealthy, and many children died, many people died. And so there are questions, but I believe that this needs to be checked. But I believe that this was something that they try to cause to destroy our America because they want control. That's just like the BlackRock and the Vanguard are even trying to control all corporate manufacturing. Not only the people, but our manufacturing. That's terrible. They can't get bonds so they could do their work and invest money. It's terrible. They're only allowing certain people to have it. It's bad. And that's why we need to vote in Trump. We need to vote in Trump. Okay? Trump puts America first. Not because he's Trump. His name, Trump, happens to be Trump. I know this sounds, I say this, but please get this in your head. It's because he makes the right decisions for the people first. The reason why I say because he's Trump, because he's not perfect. He's a human being. But in his humanness, God has made perfectness. Okay? God can make perfectness in our humanness. That's why John chapter 6, 1-14, God made perfectness, correct? In our humanness. Okay? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So even though he's not perfect, God in him and all the leaders and all the people like freedom fighters like me and who've been working for many years on my work, many years, 2007, I was trying to get recycling places for each state, but they didn't listen to me. And then I had some spiritual gifts, so they got afraid. And I wrote an article, 2012, about the economic holocaust when I came back from Rome, and they killed me, and I came back to life. Many times they've tried to kill me and hurt me. I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be a victim, but my friends and family, what happened to you? What happened? What's happening? Why aren't you doing this, or why aren't you doing that? I'm just a small little teeny mustard seed, but I want to tell you what they're doing. I'm an example, actually a reflection of America, the people of America. They try to hide what they're doing to America, but they're really trying to destroy her legacy. But we're going to fix this. One thing that's really good is showing everything that's happening, okay? And I told you that there's a pattern. Remember I told you a pattern where they want to bring America down? And remember I told you on my podcasts and my speaking and my writing that there's a higher level, elite communists that are higher than Davos. Higher than others. And for America, that I was on the dot was Link Fink and Michael Bloomberg for the BlackRock and Vanguard. Because remember, I don't have time to do all this writing, all research. I'm just one person, and I have a lot of violence, so sometimes I lose hours, but I don't lose because I'm ahead, because God has given me these beautiful messages to protect America, and that's what I'm so excited about. So I wanted to tell you, I was a specialist about China years ago. I have a special geopolitical chapter here on China, what they do, what they have done, and also here a warning here in this book, right? I need to give to the world. And so China, there's a geopolitical problem, okay, in our country that we need to back up and realize it's just not Russia like 20 years ago. There's a geopolitical economy problem, there's technology, and there's also globalization. And the 5 criminals that are billionaire groups, and the biggest one is China. So all these, when you talk about variables, they're called Aristotle variables, the different environments, so you're going to get different actions that come. And so what's happened is that our monetary system is not as strong. Our GDP, gross national product, is lower than it usually is because we're not manufacturing. So China tried to take over that. But China is having some problems. Remember I said that they would, about the war, what they're doing with the CCP virus, they would have some problems. God would react. So there's these problems that we have to realize, and that's why we need to protect the borders. Let's go back to the borders and the children, because there's 9 geopolitical power criminal companies that are billionaires. They use crimes to hurt countries, okay? And they're from all different countries, okay? They do crimes in their own country and America because they want to take America down. They want to try to make America a third world country. So how does that relate to children? They try to destroy our past legacy, our present, and our future. Okay, so then we say, now all these things going on, the geopolitical problem, the geopolitical economy, our dollar is not worth as much, but all currencies are down anyways, because they are trading. They're going to be trading with their currency. And speaking of currency, the gold, Poland has put a lot of money into Russia. Okay, because they have a lot of gold. They put money into Russia because they want Russia to win the war, and they want to chisel down the hurricane and get in the. And as we know, Putin, he is a Hitlerian. I told you it's called the Hitlerian diabolism. All this going on. It's on Lincoln, my article, Hitlerian diabolism. And so that's what's happening with the war now. But they did try to assassinate Hitler. That's what I heard inside America, the America direction. Maybe the Americans tried. Then they're trying to say that they like this war because America likes this war because they're making so much money on oil to support all the tools and energy they need for the war. Okay, so Exxon and other oil companies are making money on this war. Okay, we could question that. Maybe they're forcing it, but you cannot allow there's a Holocaust. They wanted to take the people from Hurricane, which they did, and destroy them. It's almost like an ethnic cleansing. That's what he wanted, Putin. So it just happens that Exxon did make a lot of money from that. But if you look at all the things, if you look at everything, okay, it began that Putin wanted to take over Hurricane. So what are we going to just sit there with our head in the sand? No. And I got very upset because in the beginning, we could have gotten them in the beginning properly if we used our military tools properly. I told you that. A CIA agent told me, Lisa, if we went in properly from the sky, we could have had them in the beginning, but they didn't. They dragged their feet. They thought maybe, oh, they're going to stop. They're going to stop. And then Putin had no respect for Biden and his counterparts, such as Link and Larry Link and Bloomberg and all the terrible elite communists that are hitting. And Obama, as we know, I'm not saying anything wrong. Obama, they say, is controlling many of the things. And I wanted to tell you, and how does this relate to children? Again, this relates to children. They lose their home. The parents lose their home. The children have less time for education. Our education system gets destroyed. The authentic being is controlled when we hold monies back, empowering to give loans to our manufacturing and also to our small businesses. And then another point is that there's so much persecution. Rickards talks about this. So much persecution with people that are religious, particular Catholics, that Biden is against. I know myself. They watch me every way. They break my computer all the time. They use my ideas and they chisel it down and use what they pick and choose. It's terrible because I am a geopolitical specialist and political analyzer, and you could see it in my writing. And then they do this. It's very terrible, and that's Rickards. You have to look him up. He's worked for the CIA. He's worked for the government under Reagan and other presidents, but also Altura that works with the Paradigm. Altura is another economist that works with the Paradigm Press with Rickards and many others. He talks about the Fitch. Fitch is some new information that was unknown to the market, would be different situation. Fitch is where they identify about the agency believes that U.S. government bonds are riskier than bonds from countries of Germany, Singapore, and Switzerland. So a Fitch is identifying, it's like identifying how our country's doing, okay? How our country's doing. And the thing is that he talks about, and so I agree, that the claims by Fitch, they're like an interview, they assess who's doing better, who's not doing better, is that the claim that Fitch, that these countries' debt represents a safer environment than U.S. debt is frankly just absurd. It is absurd. Obviously, we're making more money on oil, and also we're getting stronger And the House and the Congress are doing much better job making safety of our country, for stopping wokeism, protecting the people, the children, and also many other benefits in our country under McCarthy and the team. And so Fitch, he agrees that Fitch is incorrect. This is Altura, and he tells us this, and he believes that we Americans are doing actually much better than these other countries of Switzerland, Germany, Singapore. Okay, all the currencies have gone down, so we have to be careful. You know, here we say, for example, that BlackRock and Vanguard are controlling the capitalistic censorship. Remember, the controlling capitalist censorship of who could be, how to use the monies with bonds, and also with corporate censorship. We still have room to improve. We still can improve. Other billionaires could work around us and take and work and have a balance, even if they're so powerful, even if they owe so much money. It's not so much always about the money. It's the morale and the spirit of the people in America and the wonderful elite billionaires and influencers. Because we know when Moses, remember, they were just a small little Israelites, you know, that were blessed always by God with a covenant of protection. Okay, he opened the sea so they could walk through and get away from the Pharaoh. I always use that example. It's the same thing with us. Even though there's controls, we can make America work. Okay, when Trump gets in his leadership skills, we could balance off first, and then we could get better and better. Just like I wrote a paragraph and says, I disagree that America is having so many problems, and they're going to control everything, and Biden, you know, said this and said that the employment is better and this is better, but this is good and that's bad. And then I says, we need to look at it a little bit deeper, you know, just like President Trump. And then he just happened to comment perfectly on what I said, which is so beautiful. And he said it perfectly. And he said that, you know, Biden was piggybacking on all the works that we did. Okay, but on the other hand, he's gone down. You know, since Biden's been in, everything has gone down. Many things have gone down. And as I said before in one of my first podcasts in the beginning, is the energy. He should have never closed those oil wells. It's not 140,000 jobs that were lost from the Keystone oil well. It's more because each person hired other people, correct, for jobs. So they did open up some oil wells. That's what McCarthy did say, but that was one of the biggest mistakes he made, and other mistakes, so many things he did wrong. We know all the things he did because it's at the news, okay? So my delivery today is that we are going to use the logic of the statistics of God's virtues and truth that are the Judeo-Christian nation to bring our country back. And you know there's wisdom. You know there's a more perfect way than less perfect way. We could ask God for our wisdom, and there's many people that have wisdom for the best direction. So we need to say that we could change this and be positive. We can't always believe, even if there is facts that Blackbird, what is it? BlackRock. See, it's just a small little name, small little company. God, in one blink of the eye, he could change everything. Okay, but BlackRock and Vanguard are the two biggest companies trying to be in control. You know, we can overcome this, just like Altura said in Paradigm Press, that they're trying to. Fitch is a company that analyzes the bond market and other economic situations, that they're taking things out of hand, you know, and not looking at it correctly. That America is doing okay and will be fine as long as we vote freedom for America in the future. But if we stay on this line with Biden and the elite communists. And we know what Biden did and all those things. By the way, Biden was chosen, just so you know, he was chosen so they could control him. Same thing with Obama. Obama was chosen too because they knew that he had a socialistic platform, you know. And so this is very important. But we could overlook that because just like Jesus, you know, there was a hierarchy, power, governments, and even those that were in religious power that weren't for the people. That's likened to like maybe our President Obama or Biden, okay, and the elite communists, such as that's likened to Mr. Link and also Mr. Bloomberg and many other elite communists such as Putin. You know, these people are likened to that, okay? Because you learn by history of human history. But Jesus came and he was able to multiply the fish, 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread to feed the 5,000. And that's what we have to do for America and the world in different parts of the world, okay? Every part of the world. And it's so beautiful how Italy won't allow, she will not allow synthetic beef. She's careful now about the CCP to buy any agriculture. We have to do the same thing. We have to move Gates over. Okay, move him over. Just go like this and say, by law, you need to get, even if you have to get by force to take back those agriculture places that he bought and the CCP virus by force, because we cannot change our foods or synthetic foods, and we have to protect our country for that. It's very bad, and we cannot have World Health Control. As I told you, early on in 2020, very early on 2021, the year of the vaccination, when they found out about the CCP virus, I said 2 months after, in January, February, that we need to have no vaccination. Because remember, I was in the medical business for over 20 years, but I also studied science and philosophy, and also I understood humanitarian ideas for 20 years. Simultaneously, I was working at a medical office in all different ways, plus simultaneously understanding humanity's needs. And then I had study of deep philosophy and writing and studies continues for many years. I'm not trying to, prove myself, but you don't know me. Only a few people know me. So I have to tell you of my experience, but it shows in the writing and also the speaking. So we cannot have vaccinations, okay? Because they have more contraindications. And I told you because the vaccination was made in the lab. I saw it. I had a vision, actually. It was made in the lab before they proved it was. And I also said it was an inside job. I knew that before. It's an inside job, and Fauci was a part of it, unfortunately, and other people in America. And I said that before they found that out. And so before they found facts. And and I also said that they knew there was contraindications but they didn't make sure it was taken care of and send it out very fast and tell the world that there's problems with the vaccination, because they had a plan to kill the people and the weak people also, and the elderly, because that's what the CC virus does. It kills the elderly, it kills the people that are weaker in health, and it also it makes the organs weaker, and it also brings other diseases because it's deformed. It's not a natural. This is a big difference. It's not a natural component of disease, that just came like a flu or the measles. It's synthetic, so it's going to have different contraindications with the body. Okay, and so they know that it hurt mostly older people, mostly older from 75 and up. 80% or more died 75 and up. And I think 78 and up, like 90% or 95. In some ways, some states 95. And no children they're off the charts for all states that died, no children. Did you know that? And when I did statistics for California, because I am from California and I begged Newsom to open up the restaurants, open the businesses, and he didn't listen. I got in a lot of trouble for that. I've had a lot of violence, I don't want to say, because people asked me to do that. And they allowed the vaccinations because they wanted to kill the people, okay? A holocaust against the people. So we can't have World Health Control. And then if you notice, a lot of the social media talks about the that they're going to make another virus to try to control the people. So, you know, it's too bad because there's enough to go around. There's enough beauty. There's enough food. There's enough water. There's enough land. But we need to realize that the only way we're going to protect our country is if we all walk in line, in a closer line of truth. We can't support wokeism. We can't support transgenderism. We have to consider the children. The children are the most important. And the children are, there's contraindications on everything that we do in our country from the children, whether it's past, present, and future. And I believe we need to treat children and women like more precious and beautiful. And that all women and children, when they're treated more precious and beautiful, our country, it will get better. That's one of the things that is most important in justice, in love. Even if you don't believe in God, treat women and children when they need something properly. Empower them, not just give them, empower them and help them and nurture them back to their needs. And so when those borders were open, now let's go back to China. Another problem is it's a silent war. That's what President Trump said, but I told them years ago, because I had a vision they were bringing all these drugs in, because they found a larger drug bust in Los Angeles. Did you know that? About 10 years ago than all the states put together in like 5 years. They found it in one drug drop from LA, okay, the LA airport, and they brought it into America. I'm pretty sure it was the LA airport. I'm not sure exactly what airport, but that's when President Trump saw Mrs. Trump, the first lady, okay, she made sure that there was a big change to protect drug issues and drug and alcohol, because they saw that China wanted to bring our country down, a silent war. That's why they made the phenolphthalein, and they put it through the borders. 100,000 people died in 1 year and more. They bring it through the border, brothers and sisters, okay? And they knew this, and they wanted to change it. And I'll never forget it. It's a silent war on the people in America that President Trump and his wife, the First Lady, Mrs. Trump, she made sure that we put thousands and thousands of dollars to help correct the drug and alcohol problem in America, because it was a silent war on the people. They came in through the border with phenolphthalein, and what they did. Then we had the people that they did lockdown. It all was a pattern to destroy America and the world's control. The lockdown from the CCP virus. So there's, now bear with me, please, so you could see the pattern. What their plan was to destroy America. First, they controlled the votes. You know, President Trump did win, okay, and he won, okay, he won, but they showed the votes incorrectly, and the machines, the Dominican machines, were owned by Pelosi's. He was a big investor in the Dominican machines, and there's so many problems that show that the votes were incorrect, okay? And so then, because they knew that President Trump, when he first went in 2016, that he was going to make America free again and restore her, and he did by the statistics it showed. And not just statistics, the living life of the people, the morale was better and everything. But then to destroy things, the Black Life Matters, just a small amount to people. The rich Black Life Matters, not the big black group of people of America. 80% or more, 85% of Black people fund the police, okay? 85%. So then you have that other percent where they're treated incorrectly. Sometimes they put bias on them. And then you have the small little 3% that are controlled by the elite communists such as Soros through money and other people, Obama, and I don't want to say who else. It's a very serious thing. and even music people, okay, that so they came in and they wanted to put dissension on America. That's another pattern. And I told you this, Pope the 10th and 11th, when they told me this, I used my writings about, in my writings, a lot of my leaders that I've studied are the popes, okay? Because I am Catholic and I believe in Jesus, my Lord and Savior, but some of the popes were the greatest politicians ever that lived, okay? Because that's when Rome was in power. And they had some beautiful points. So Pope 10th and 11th said the first thing when they want to start trouble is they put dissension against the people. Then they make what's true a lie and lie a truth. And then they try to make problems, okay, to destroy the people. So how did they do that? They put dissension between the people from Black Lives Matters and other problems like wokeism, transgenderism, control of the people, of secretly trying to make, it's terrible, a child, a boy or a girl, and changing their identity without the parents' notification. This should be illegal, and I think it is. I think McCarthy, I begged and kept on asking him to change that. It should be illegal to have the transgender taught in the school system at any age, and sex identification should never be taught in the school. So that's how that happened. And then also they pitted us against each other that way. Then number two, they made a truth what is a lie, and a lie what is truth. Backwards. That's like transgenderism, wokeism, and also keeping the borders open caused the Phenolphine to put a silence war on drugs. Okay, I could go on, and they killed the people, many people, and now many of the homeless. They caused a problem with the lockdowns from the CCP virus. The vaccination was all planned, and the war also was controlled and extended because they wanted, for many reasons, and also for the payoff of Biden and his control that he's paid off for working with these countries. We know, and the details will come out the best they could come. So all these patterns together add up because they were strategized to bring world control, not just for America. Okay, brothers and sisters? So the third thing is they cause trouble, so it ruins the country. And how did they cause trouble? As I told you, that the CCP virus, they tried to kill the people, the lockdowns, the control of lockdowns, and you couldn't work. The war, they extended the war, and there was fraudulence in the war and other very terrible crimes. Then there's also the World Health Control. There's also the individual loss of monies, because people lost so much money when there's a lockdown. So so many people became homeless. Probably more than 80% of the homeless people are a result from the lockdowns. And then they threw drugs in, and then and I begged and begged. None of the billionaires made any force to help them. I begged, and they could have done it. They're brilliant. We could have gone to each state and got those people out. Then they're allowing San Jose, San Francisco, and other places in our country to inject drugs right on the street in San Jose, and they're ruining the whole mentality and morale in the state of San Jose and San Francisco. They need to get those people, as I told you, this is very important, because one child could pass through the cracks. Okay, it's terrible. And they need to get those people, those drug people that have problems. Many are from genograms, others were forced into drugs, others are criminals, and they need to bring them in and put them in a place, in a nurturing, lovely place, and use people that have a track record. Because he says they put billions of dollars into California and other countries, other states, to help the homeless, but they don't have track records. Like World Vision had track records, and then they have to use smaller drug and mental health companies that have paradigms that have the same that work. and put them in sections then if they have to take a smaller amount of people that work, not a CEO that doesn't know anything about how to help the homeless. They have to use like World Vision and others. And now I heard that Catholic Charities, a lady said that they took 950 children from a bus and we don't know where they are. So we have to be very careful. Also, because there are schisms, even though I'm being Catholic, there's divisions between the church. There's evil and good, okay? And but we have to be positive. And so how does this all relate? How does this relate to the children? How does all this relate? This takes away their justice, the future for America when you don't vote freedom. When you try to kill their legacy by bringing a CCP virus and it causes infertility. The CC vaccination caused infertility because I told you in the beginning that if the CCP virus or CCP vaccination cause inflammation, all diseases start from inflammation of the cell. As a science and philosopher, I've studied that about elements of that integrate into the system and how to relate to human in their lives. And so that's why many of the diseases, new diseases, came because there's inflammation of the cell when they take the CCP virus vaccination, and there's infertility. So they purposely did that because anytime you try to make a vaccination and then have a the CCP virus related to that, they planned because they want to decrease population. That's why there's a problem with infertility when they do the vaccination. So we could heal ourselves just by the alternative medicine of interfermin. That's not the exact name. It was alternative medicine. Interfermin. It was a different type of medicine they used. It was alternative medicine. And many newscasters, many people used it and they were fine. They didn't have contraindications, but they wouldn't allow that. And then there was $100 billion that Pfizer made from this. And we believe that they knew that this was a problem, many of the hierarchy. Pfizer knew this, okay? And that they made that much money. And I asked, it was a divine command that they had to bring money back and help the people. The next week, there was a big tornado on their vaccination building. Now, unless that was, a technology, I don't know, a technology bomb, like's happened in Maui, a technology force of that bomb. They said it was a tornado, and so many vaccinations were destroyed and their whole warehouse. We need to realize that these things have been happening for many years. Okay, when there was World War II, we had problems. Okay, but we worked and we rebuilt our country, and actually we contributed to the East and West. And since World War II, those countries have come very fast. Look at China. China is, I hate to say, they have a 10-year plan to take over America. Even though when there's so much debt, China, as I told you in my books, China and Russia are together, and also the trickery of Iran. But I kept on telling you that Iran is not a Judeo-Christian nation. I said that once, but it's and I apologize, but it has the God of Abraham. And they will be chastised if they do not follow the obedience of what God wants. They make military tools and to control other countries and to make money to give to China, Russia, and other countries, and also the Afghanistan. That's the other point. Afghanistan, all those people's lives and the men and women and children were abused. Many, their whole life, not until someone gets in there and tried to integrate. A miracle for some of the leaders. They have to live in abuse for the rest of their life. But many military men were killed. All our years of trying to bring peace were killed. And actually Syria with ISIS, okay? Remember I told you in the beginning, in my first book, I talk about ISIS a lot. And President Trump, he he had the ISIS leaders. They had they were taken care of, and they had to be liberated their life because of their evil. But America still goes into Syria to protect Syria areas from the ISIS, but ISIS keeps on coming back because they get money from the oil. Okay, they get money from the oil, but the ISIS is in trouble. Is in trouble for evil to overtake Europe and America. There are the ISIS of the evil people to try to take over our country. So that's why America goes into Syria to try to protect Syria in that boundary, in that area, from ISIS. And it gets very complicated, but I'm trying to bring this all together. I know it might seem so much, but you need to realize that we need to vote freedom. We need to vote freedom. We need to vote Trump because he puts America first. He wants to help the people. He knows how to be diplomatic. He understands the economy. He's not being controlled by elite communists. And obviously, all these indictments against him, they're doing this because they wanted to try to bring him down. I saw what they're doing as an analyst, but they do it to other people to try to bring them down. Just like Biden is against the Catholics. That's what I hear from Rickards. And we have to be very careful because they want to make a digital dollar. And like Tika, he's a beautiful economist. He also talks about they're going to make it. But then Michael Gibson, I think his last name, he says that don't spend money on certain things and they won't be able to. But they want to make a digital dollar, CBD, a digital dollar for America, and that brings a lot of control. They said it's more efficient for everybody, but it controls cash, and it's not so good. And they also want to make a social credit. And we need to realize that we can work on these things because remember I told you the coin idea of the globalization of power. There's new ones. There's China, there's Russia, there's Iran, then we have the geopolitical powers that's changed, all of them, the geopolitical economy. Our dollar's worth less, and other currencies are being used instead of ours to trade. And because there's geopolitical powers, they make more money. So it's not just us we're making money, even though that America, they say, oh, they've made so much money because people traded only with the dollar, not with their own currency. But America was the one that always protected other countries. I'm not saying they were perfect, but trying to bring freedom and peace as a reflection of God's justice. And then we have the globalization of the different ideas of what is truth, what is not, of all the different nationalities in all different countries, and not working together and understanding of that we need to put Judeo-Christian nation first as Americans in our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and also the powers of economy through globalization that's connected to technology where you can do things so fast. And then also the crimes of the 9 billionaire groups. And now we have these elite communists, as I told you, the higher levels, not just Davos, but for America, is the BlackRock and also Vanguard, that we could hope that they are overcome and they wake up and see that they need to give loans and bonds to other manufacturing, other companies, so they could capitalize and grow and not be controlled, and have control over the monetary system. In any ways, eventually, they'll go down. If they don't allow the capitalism to grow in our country, eventually, in 10 to 30 years, they'll be taken down because they will come and start war. They'll start war. They'll say, we do have so many commodities, we have to use our commodities. We have to use our commodities. And I said, as a divine message, we have many, many commodities that haven't been used, and we need to balance out. We can't just use electric grade, because we know the CO2 to make the electric cars, it causes a lot of pollution, more than it does for the gas cars. And we need a balance. We need to use our oil. And then we also have the liquid oil that, as I I kept on telling you that we could build the containers to send to Europe, so we have income for that. Just like Altura said, Althucer from Paradigm Press, and Antica and Rickards, and so many others, the Rogue, and Stansberry. They all talk about this for years. They've been doing these writings for years and speaking on America. Things changed, but we could correct them. Just like in World War II, we corrected our country, and we could have a good morale by taking care of our homeless. We cannot leave homeless on the streets of all different states. It's not good for the children to see, and in some places, they will be diseased, and it will go across the communities. And for example, California, they need to restructure who's taking care of that and enforce proper laws, because they try to say it was federal law. They try to change in San Jose and other places to allow them to take drugs on the street and other problems on the street. They need to bring them in a facility of beauty, of natural ability to teach them to live in alternative and Western medicine and exercise health, and also to redeem them back to health. This is very important. We cannot have them on the street of San Jose. A beautiful man in Cave Creek, Arizona, I could see he worked all his life, for America. And I think he was a veteran. He told me, Lisa, it's so terrible what's happened to San Jose. You can see his eyes got all watered. We need to realize that we need to come together and work together with beautiful entrepreneurs. There's another lady that's a beautiful lady. Her name is Shanta Stumpner. She's doing a beautiful job to bring women and men, to teach them to monetize their gifts. When we get people like this, Grant Cardone, Ted McGrath, so many people. There's another lady named Jessera with Pretty People. She's precious, it's so precious. It's so beautiful. It's God's flow of love that we have these beautiful people that work together in America. And I go from place to place and I see the young people. They want to do a good job. They're afraid of capitalism because they're afraid of the control of the elite communists. But they don't realize they're communists. They're not capitalists. They're communists that use social trickery to control people. So they have these beautiful young people. We have to realize that we have to have the beautiful flow of capitalism, of empowering the people, not to just feed them with social ideas or control them and try to kill them off. We have to empower them. And we just need to get these people out of our hair. And it's so terrible that these things have happened. I'm very sad about it. Once I couldn't show my podcast because I was being like almost too mean, and about the drugs, the destroying of the drugs. We're supposed to hate evil, okay? But we have to realize the God in us is stronger and more beautiful and powerful than the world, okay, and evil. The God's love is stronger and more powerful. It could bring a miracle. All we need is a mustard seed of love. And we could do this, America. We could do this. I appreciate your love. I appreciate your kindness. So we need to vote freedom, vote Trump. And we could get back on track. It's no problem. We are getting back on track in a lot of ways. We have to admit, okay? So we could overcome this. Thank you so much. My name is Lisa Lucia Arden. Look me up. I'm at www.rise to God's truth and www.lisaluciaarden. America is great, and the people are God's people. And actually, all humanity is created by God. He just wants to love us. He wants the best for us. Thank you so much. In God we trust. Thank you so much. My name is Lisa Lucia Arden. I'm a life coach, and also I'm a coach and consultant for individuals, communities, and nations. Thank you.